It's epic and more galactic than a supermassive black hole. Introducing Asia's biggest and only all-female English comedy chat podcast. Welcome to Tomboy T-Rod.
Welcome to a special interview edition of Tomboy T-Rod, Asia's biggest and only all-female comedy chat podcast. Today, we sit down with the ever-charming Susan Surftone, one of today's few female surf rock artists.
Ever since Elvis Presley entered her life when she was 3 years old, Susan Surftone knew she wanted to live the rock and roll life. And age hasn't stopped her from shredding her guitar on her latest release entitled The Magician. The former special FBI agent sits with us to tell us about her influences on the new album,
Yay!
And life as a tomboy musician. Hey Susan, it's great to have you with us. Thank you for taking the time to do this interview.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I've listened to the album already a couple of times on Spotify. I actually love it because, you know, I love 50s surf rock and I am really into, that kind of, rock and roll. So do you want to tell us a little bit about how the whole working process for this album came about and if there was anything new that you learned while recording The Magician?
I learned how to sing. It's the first record that I sung on. I'm not. All my previous releases have been just instrumental, and I decided to sing for the first time on this record. So I had to get used to doing that, which was quite an experience. It's really strange when you hear yourself the first time. If other people hear you, it's very different. And as far as the the selection of songs, that was fun. I like Elvis, so I did two of Elvis's songs. I did songs from his early recordings because actually his voice was higher then. He sung in the key of F as opposed to the key of E.
Oh, okay.
So it was easier for me with my female voice to get that key right. And he was also a very untrained singer, of course, when he started. And I'm an untrained singer, so I figured I had the best chance of hitting the mark with his early material. Plus, I like it better anyway. I like his early stuff a lot better, so that was easy. The guitar work was easy for me. That wasn't difficult at all.
Yeah, I'm sure because that's like you're just a master on it. It's amazing. I love your guitar playing. But I mean, when you do sing, when you start singing, was there like a self-consciousness because you've always been an instrumentalist?
Oh God, yeah. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so it's amazing to ask how you transitioned from being an FBI agent to a musician. Is there anything from that life that you have brought into your music?
Well,
or is it like a separate thing altogether?
Well,
Like past life, current life?
not really. Yes and no. Well, the FBI, of course, is a very macho male environment, and there weren't that many of us women there at the time that I was in. And the surf music, which is what I played, was a macho male environment without many women in it. So that was pretty consistent. So I guess I got used to the fact that there would be some men that would be supportive and friendly, which there were in both places, and that there would also be some men that just didn't want you there and were going to criticize everything you did, whether you did it right or wrong. And you just always had to learn how to tune them out and just go forward and do what you did, but make sure you did it better than they could do it. And then they didn't have much left to say. So,
well, that's insecurity for you.
Yeah, you really you had to be sure that you were good. That's the thing. You really, that's why it's important to know that you could beat them. And then when you did beat them enough, then eventually they have nothing to say and they kind of go away. So, so that's kind of what I learned.
That sounds like mosquitoes.
Yeah, sort of.
You swipe them.
And then the men that are supportive, well, you make some good friends there. So it's
Yeah, that's true. Well, that's good and bad in every gender, I suppose. I know some women who bite each other's, neck off. That's so.
Yeah. Yeah, there were some of them in the FBI too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
So
yeah.
I just wanted to get a sense of all the songs on the album. So if you have the time, could you give us a track by track short commentary of the tracks that you can find on The Magician? Like the first one, let's talk a little bit about A Little Bit Lied
A
To.
little bit lied to. Okay. That's a vocal song. That's the first song that I did record.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote that back in the 90s when I was playing in a band that had a vocalist. And I wrote it when I was living in Rochester, New York. It was a song that I always wanted to sing because it's kind of like a Buddy Holly song.
Mm-hmm.
And I always had in the back of my mind that someday I would sing it. So I chose that for the first song. And in the presidential election this year over here in the States, it seemed like lying is a central theme on both sides. So I thought it might be a good idea. It's a good year to do it.
Good one.
Yeah, I think we all feel a little bit lied to by,
That's right,
by both
Yeah.
of them, but we have to decide,
So what about the track, the second track on the album, Rumble? I like Rumble. Wow, I loved it. Yeah.
Rumble is a song that Link Ray did back in the 50s. It was one of the first instrumental hits, really. And that's the song that established the power chords in rock and roll.
Mm-hmm.
And I always liked that song. I loved it. I played it, my God, back in the 90s. And I've always played it in my live set. And I knew that Steve could really bring something new to it on the drums, because he plays drums on my recording. And I wanted to put a lead guitar over it, because in the original version of Rumble, there really isn't a lead guitar. It's all done on rhythm. And I figured, it was a good time to do it. It's I just like the song, and I do like Link Ray a lot. I would say out of all the guitar players that I've listened to in my life, he is certainly one of my biggest influences. And I was lucky enough to meet him before he died. He played a gig when I lived in Albany, New York. He is a nice guy. He's one of the few people I've asked for an autograph, and he was very nice. He gave it to me, and I like to cover his material.
I've been traveling over mountains.
And what about Trying to Get to You? Sounds
Okay.
very stalker-ish.
That's Elvis. That's not really. He's actually singing to somebody that's far away. But that's one of the early Sun records. It's got a more bluesy feel to it, which I like. I also like the guitar work in it. And it just was a song. I could sing it, and I was kind of looking for cover songs where I didn't have to change the lyrics a lot from male to female. And that one required no change at all. So that was good, and I could sing it. I tried. Believe me, I tried out a lot of them in the house. The cat can tell you. And that one seemed to be doable. So I went with that one. And like I said, I really like the guitar work on it.
That's the one that was like Kitty approved.
Yes, Kitty approved. Kitty approved. Yep.
And take us through just a short commentary on Sunburn.
Sunburn, that's an old song. I wrote that. That was one of the first songs that I wrote. And I wanted to do a new version of it because I had never played the bass line on it before. And I wanted to do a more punk style with that one. And Steve is actually his forte is punk drumming. And he had a good time with it. And I just wanted to give it an updated feel. A little more aggressive than it had been done in the past, and that was like my easy one on the record. It's when you sit down and record and you got so much time to do so many songs. It's always nice to have one that you can do in like 20 minutes.
Yeah, just chill out.
That was the one,
Yeah.
because I've been playing it for like 20 years, so I give a year a minute. And that one worked out well. I like the way it sounds. I've always liked it, but I like the original.
So So then we come on to track number 5, which is the second last on the EP, Shadowland.
Yes, Shadowland. That's a new instrumental. That one was written very recently. And I usually do things where I get fixated on some songs from like the 60s or 70s, and I was like fixated on Smoke on the Water, the chord progression. So I started fooling around with that, and I just started, playing around, and I got this chord progression that I liked, and then the bass line, and then the guitar was basically, Steve and I did the rhythm tracks and the drums, and then I just sat down and winged it with the lead guitar. That was just all done off the top of my head, and it was kind of fun. I like playing the lead lines like that, to have kind of like an idea of what I'm going to do, but not really have it set down note for note, and just kind of just go for it. And that's what I did with that one, and I like that one. In fact, I really think I hate to sound like I have a big head, but I think I did a really good job on that one, and I'm sitting here trying to figure out how to beat it. It's like each song, I was like, okay, now you set the bar this high, so now what are you going to do? Okay. So,
you have to beat yourself now.
That you're your own. Really, you're your own competition. You're your own standard, and I got to figure out. Okay, what am I going to do next now? I don't know. So we're working on that.
I like the last one as well. Like, it's so bluesy. Like, even the title is bluesy. Blue Moon of Kentucky. Yeah, wow, what's the story behind that one?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite, actually.
Yeah.
It's actually the flip side of Elvis's first record. First song record.
Oh, okay.
And it's an old bluegrass song that Bill Monroe wrote. It's actually it was written, I think, in '48. And Bill Monroe did he did a bluegrass style, of course, because that was what he played. And Elvis just started in the studio. They started playing it, and Elvis kind of did a more bluesy kind of, we didn't really, I don't even know if they knew what rock and roll was at the time, but a more rock version and a little more pop version too. It had, more appeal, and it kind of, when his first single went out, it didn't really have an A-side and a B-side, so Blue Moon of Kentucky was popular too. And I think a lot of people struggle with that song. I've heard versions of it that it sounds like they struggle. But for me, that song was just easy to do. There was something about it. It just fit me, and I just was able to really get into it. And I had a good time with that one. I had a lot of fun with that one. So, yeah, I think it shows. So.
Yeah, cool. Speaking of Elvis, how did discovering him change your life?
How did covering him change my life? Well, it was fun to know I can do it because, he is a big role model for me. It was fun to be a woman doing it because that kind of gives it a new twist. Something different. I think there are female Elvis impersonators, not that I am doing an impersonation, but I think there are some. I haven't seen too many of them, but I think that there are. And it was just fun to do what kind of came naturally to me because I have been listening to him since I was 3. So his style and his way of doing things for me, is very natural. And I like Elvis. I mean, I identify with Elvis a lot. He was an only child, so was I, and he was quiet, and so, I am actually.
So are we, actually, Raven and myself.
So it just all kind of fit, and I just like the fact that I finally did it.
Yeah, we should start a club.
An only child club.
Yeah, the Elvis Only Child Club.
Yeah.
So talking about rock and roll, I mean, like, the blues and Elvis and Memphis and, all the Tennessee musicians of the day, it was such an amazing time in music, the golden age of rock and roll. But, as we've moved through the decades, we've seen rock and roll climax and then, and pretty much remain a staple in music. But really, I think in the last 10 years, it's taken such a beating that there's so many talented rock bands out there, but they're just not experiencing the kind of success that they used to. And some people say it's almost dead. What are your thoughts on that? Being someone who grew up with Elvis, the blues, you've seen rock, how rock has evolved. Do you have any passionate thoughts and feelings
Well,
about that.
it's not dead, and people will always come back to it because it's the one I think that gets the closest to true human emotion. And it's actually it's easy to it's not well it's hard to play if you eventually master it, but it's not that difficult to get started with it. It's basically you can do it with 3 chords, and once you get that what's called the 1-4-5 progression down, you can start a band. And it's easy access. I mean, in the 70s, they said rock was dead. They were doing all that singer-songwriter James Taylor stuff. There was disco. There was the more progressive rock where, you needed a certain level of skill to play. And people said rock was dying back in the 70s. And then along came the Ramones and the Clash. And they were back, and Blondie and everything. So like anything else, it ebbs and flows. And I think that sometime when some form of music or like fashion or anything hasn't been in vogue for a while, younger people are able to rediscover it. And then they kind of give it their own spin. They come back to the core and then they give it their own feel, their own spin. And that's how it evolves. But I think you're always going to find people playing rock music somewhere. And like I said, eventually, it's like anything, like with surf music, there's always an ebb and flow of it. It's not popular, and then 10 years later it is.
Yeah.
So, as John Lennon said, it's all been done before, and I think he was right. And you just keep coming back to what's been done before, but each generation gives it its own feel, and then that's what makes it new and fresh for you young people. So, us old guys will keep it going, and then you guys pick it up, and it's like passing the torch. So.
I like what someone said about how rock and roll comes to you. You don't really have to go to it. And that quote has kind of stayed with me, throughout my life, because I think rock and roll is something that's so accessible to people that, it changes people's lives. When it comes to you, it just, makes this mark in your life. And then, however the way you listen to it, it has such an impact on people because it's so raw. It hits you right there emotionally. Yeah.
It's got an attitude to it, and it's also very basic. So it allows you to make your own interpretation in your own mind, your own life, and how you interpret it for yourself. That's another thing that's good about it. In its simplicity, it gives you that freedom to interpret it your way.
So, on another topic, how do you, as a mature musician, deal with all the labels in the music industry? Because you're certainly rocking your own boat and doing your own thing. Yeah.
Oh, you mean what do you mean the labels, like being older or what?
Yeah, like being older, being LGBT, being there's so many labels already. Being a female musician,
you don't listen to them. You don't pay any attention to them. You just go ahead and do what you're doing, and when you're older, you lose your hearing, so you can't hear them anymore. And you just go ahead and you don't listen to them that much, and you realize that in doing that, you find your niche. Like I've been doing a lot of the LGBT press has been picking up stories about me, which is good because it's like I've done my thing, and now I can come back to my community and tell my story.
Yeah.
And I think it provides, maybe, I'm hoping, a little bit of inspiration for some younger women to say, okay, we can do this too, and we can do it our way. That's the thing. You open a door and then you let people come through, and then they put their own spin on it and make it their own. So like I said, it's very much a passing of the torch.
So
that's how I feel
also,
about
it. As you become older, you become more confident as well. I think it really helps. The confidence, like
I said, you just can't hear them anymore. So you can't hear them.
Oh my god, I don't know what you're talking about. I can't hear you.
Yeah, that's true. You just get into your own mindset about things anyway.
Yeah, you do. You get more confident about it, and you just feel a little more comfortable in your own skin.
Yeah.
And you've got experience behind you, which, believe it or not, does help. And that you just become you become yourself more and more and more, and I think you look at the world through experience, and it is different than when you're in your 20s. It is.
Well, you just answered my last question, so I don't have to ask you that.
What is what?
It was like, if you have any advice for other women out there who want to dream big, especially, not just the young rock and rollers, but like those that, think that they've passed that age of being a rock star,
There is no age of being a rock star. Go ask Mick Jagger and see what he
Yeah, I
thinks.
know, right?
Yeah.
As long as these guys are like, they're almost 10 years older than me, a
Yeah.
little less maybe, and they're doing it. So I always look at the Stones and say, well, as long as they're up there, I'm young.
They're
as long
still
as
rolling.
McCartney's up there, So there really is no age to it. You just have to keep going with it, and you just keep working at it and do better. And if you stop, no door's ever going to open for you. You have to keep going, and then the opportunities will come. By God, for me, I didn't really get any recognition till I was 40. You just have to keep going, and things change. It's like when I started, there was no do-it-yourself type of thing, DIY. You had to get signed by a label, and that was almost impossible. And then indie sprung up, and before you know it, you could make your own record, and then you could sell your own record, and now all kinds of doors can open. So things change, and you can take advantage of the change. It all will stop for you when you give up. So you decide, how things are going to happen for you. If you hang in there and you keep working, you never know what's going to happen. So that's my advice, is just keep going, because you don't know. You don't know what tomorrow's going to bring.
Exactly. And
True.
just keep doing what you love, right?
Yeah.
Passion is important.
Yeah. Well, Susan, thank you so much for
thank
coming
you.
onto the show. It's been really enlightening, and we loved hearing your thoughts about, being a surf rocker, and we really, really love your music, and we're going to tell all our friends about it.
I'll be rocking out to your music.
Yes.
Good, thank you.
Rocking.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Wow. Susan was definitely, interesting. She's got a lot of stories to tell about Elvis Presley, especially, right, Raven?
Yeah.
Well, folks, we've come to the end of another episode of Tomboy T-Rod, the interview special. If you want to hear more of us, don't forget to subscribe to our regular show on iTunes and Stitcher. We are also available for free streaming on our website, where you'll find all sorts of stuff on being a funny geek tomboy in space-time today. Check us out at www.tomboy-tarts.com. That's www.tomboy-tarts.com.
That's right. And if you just want to connect with us outside of the show, we are also on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Tumblr. Just type Tomboy Tarts.
Yeah, if you want to advertise, collaborate, or appear on this podcast or our blog, then all you have to do is drop us an email, guys, at hello@tomboy-tarts.com. That's hello at tomboy-tarts.com, because we are everywhere, guys, on this interview, in that interview, and every other interview in the whole wide world. Yes. So until our next interview special here on Tomboy T-Rod, Raven and I want to wish you guys all the best.
Yep.
Take care, and don't let the bed bugs bite.
Bye!